Hey viewers, I was working on a bike and I found that the bottom bracket was really rough, so I pulled it off. But the cool thing is that bottom brackets like this that have sealed cartridge bearings can be rebuilt with brand new bearings. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, on a lot of bottom brackets, the drive side and non-drive side are different lengths. The spindle's asymmetrical. I want to remember which side of the spindle went on the drive side, so I'm going to mark it. Put just some mark over here with a Sharpie, and it may wipe off, but hopefully it'll stay there. But just in case, it looks like the non-drive side here is longer than the drive side, so I'll also have that to remember it by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this part off here. Here's one of the cartridge bearings right here. There's another bearing under this part here. So what I want to do is pull this part off, but that part's pressed on. So to pull this part off, I'm going to use a vise. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this part sit with this lip right on top of the jaws there. And I'm not going to clamp it down, but I just want it enough so that these are resting right on the edge of the tops of the jaws there. And so what I'm going to do is use a wooden mallet. You can use a regular hammer and a piece of wood. And I'm going to tap down on the spindle to push this part off. And so I got this part off here. And so here is the other sealed cartridge bearing right there. Now with the drive side cap off, it's easier to see what we have here. One, you can see the non-drive side part of the spindle is longer than the drive side part of the spindle. It's pretty easy to see that. But this is a fairly long spindle. It's like 121.5 millimeters. On a shorter spindle, it might not be as easy to tell. And some spindles are symmetrical, so they're going to be the same side on both sides. So that's kind of why I recommend marking the drive side, just so you can remember which side is the drive side. Now we have the two sealed bearings, and there's a sleeve to sit in between them, but it's just kind of sitting in there. The cap normally kind of holds it centered in there, but so now we can kind of push it out of the way. And these two bearings are pressed on, so we're going to have to push these bearings off of the spindle. And not a necessary step, but to help these bearings slide off a little easier, I'm going to go ahead and hit them with a little bit of penetrating oil and let that soak in for a little bit, just to help them slide off a little bit easier. And then I'll let that soak in for a few minutes. So again, I'm going to use the vise to help push these bearings off of the spindle. And so I can't get under both sides of the first bearing, but I can get one edge of the bearing sitting on the jaw there. And then I'm just going to kind of close this. I'm not going to clamp it down. And so what I'm going to do is get that edge of the bearing sitting on the jaw of the vise. I'm going to use my mallet to kind of tap down. And I'm not too worried about damaging the bearing because I'm going to be replacing these. So and got one bearing off. And then I'm going to set this little sleeve aside. And so now for the other bearing, I can put both sides of the bearing on top of the jaw and then tap this out. And I have that bearing off. And so now I have the spindle. So these are the two sealed cartridge bearings that I pulled out of there. This one turns nice and smoothly. This one with the rust on it, this is the one that turns rough on there. But I'm going to be replacing both of them anyway. Now the part number on these is 163110-2RS. The first number is the size. So it's a 16 millimeter inner diameter, 31 millimeter outer diameter, and 10 millimeter width. The 2RS simply means two rubber seals, meaning it's sealed on both sides. I've looked at some other bottom brackets and they all have the same size of bearing on there. So if you want to order new bearings, that's probably the size that you want to order, but you can check the part number on yours anyway. So I have two brand new bearings here that I'm going to press on. Before I do that, I want to put like a light coat of grease on the spindle where the bearings will be pressed on. That'll just make it easier for them to go on. And I don't need a ton of grease, just a very light coating just to help them slide on like that. And so then I just take the bearing and slide it off into place here, but I need to press it on. To do that, I have a couple sockets. These are both 5/8 inch sockets. The reason I chose these 5/8 inch sockets is that they can fit over here and they're going to push against this inner ring of the bearing. That's where I want to push against when I push them on. If I push on the outer bearing here, it's going to put a lot of stress on the bearings inside there. So I want to push against the inside there. And what I'm going to use is I have a big C-clamp here. So loosen this here, get this on, and tighten this down. I could use a vise, but I don't have a vise with wide enough jaws for this. Get this lined up in here. And this will start pushing that bearing onto the spindle. And I think this socket's only going to push it on so far. And then I'm going to have to go to that deeper socket here. I went with the shorter one because it just wouldn't fit into the jaws of the C-clamp here. And so this bearing is now pushed all the way against this little part here, so to where it stopped. So now I'm ready to put the next bearing on, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and install the sleeve on here, and I'm just going to orientate it the way that it had been on there before. It's not critical, but might as well. And then I can slide this bearing on here like this. And so get this ready here, and I'm going to use the deep socket there and get my C-clamp, slide this on here, and start pressing this guy on. And press it on till it hits the bottom there. And then I can remove the C-clamp. And so now they're on there and the spindle is turning nice and smoothly. So now I'm ready to press on the drive side cup here. I'm going to put a thin coating of grease on the inside here just to help it slide on a little easier. Now this is going to be pressing against the outside part of the bearing, which I'd rather not do, but I kind of have to. But fortunately, it's not going to use as much pressure as pushing the bearing onto the spindle. So I'm going to slide this on here like this. And I grabbed a socket. This is a 7/8 inch socket. And I chose this because this is going to fit in here like this. And it's going to push against this inside part of the cup there. And I don't know if this is going to work for the entire push on. I might have to grab another longer, deeper socket. And start pushing this on. And I want to get this sleeve lined up because this needs to slide over this sleeve. And see if it's all the way on. And yeah, that looks like it's all the way on. So that socket worked nicely. And so now this part, this just slides right on there like that. And so now I have a nice smooth moving bottom bracket. And so anyway, that is how to rebuild one of these sealed cartridge bearing bottom brackets. Hopefully you found this useful or interesting. If you did, please please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, click the subscribe button down there. Be sure to click the bell so you get notified when new videos come out. I'm over on Facebook, RJ the Bike Guy. Go over there, like that page. I post a lot of stuff over there. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Whee!